Prime Minister Mark Carney described his first meeting with President Donald Trump as very constructive, making it clear that Carney raised the competitiveness of the North American auto sector.
So we will continue to press that case and look for an arrangement that takes full advantage of it for the benefit of the United States, but of course, from our perspective, very much for the benefit of Canada.
Just this morning, the Stellantis plant in Windsor announced there would be less work for the next 12 weeks. The latest amid a series of scalebacks in Ontario's auto sector following U.S. tariffs. Premier Doug Ford says the meeting between the world leaders was a crucial first step.
I thought he did really well. It was very productive. He held his own. I'll tell you, it's very obvious that President Trump likes Prime Minister Carney a lot more than he liked Prime Minister Trudeau.
But as thousands of Ontario auto workers brace for more changes, the president says he's firm on his auto plan.
We want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada. And we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars.
David Paterson is Ontario's representative here in Washington, and he joins me now. David Paterson, it's good to see you in person. Thanks for being here, sir.
Welcome back to Washington.
What's your read on today? Was it a good day for Canada? Because the president was friendlier, but he's still saying, I want your auto sector, and I wouldn't mind you being a state.
Yeah, it's a great start for the new federal government. It's great to have them back here and on the trade file. We've been trying to hold up the walls here for the last several months, and since Premier Ford came down here and making some projects, trying to chip away at trying to chip away at some of the tariffs, and we have made some progress, but it's really important to get the federal government back and into a process, and today was the start of that, which is great news.
Just what do you make of the dynamic between the two leaders? Like, I know it's about negotiating teams and cabinet officials on both sides of the border, but the interpersonal dynamic, it does matter, especially with a president as transactional as Donald Trump. What did you make of what you saw between Mr. Carney and Mr. Trump today?
Yeah, I think it was very good. It was respectful, and it bodes well for where we're going. And that dynamic is very important. We've seen it with Premier Ford and Lutnick. That's been an important relationship, and we build on all those types of progress as we go forward. But I think from the point of view of the provinces, this was great. We really appreciated as well how the Prime Minister brought forward the building of the relationship based on, for instance, spending on our military. Yeah. That was a insistence of all the premiers that we meet our NATO spending, and he led with that, and I think that broadened up the meeting and showed that this is a two-way relationship.
Yeah, he praised Donald Trump for rejuvenating or reinvigorating the conversation around security and national defense, and called him transformational, which is an accurate description. It depends on how you view the transformations, because one of the things he wants to do is transform the auto sector, right? He said today, we don't need cars from Canada. He says, he's going to conduct himself in a way that it doesn't make economic sense to keep making cars in Canada. What does that tell you about the ability to negotiate on auto tariffs?
Well, we've been hearing that for months, and yet at the same time we've made really important progress at the same time. One of the things they talked about was the importance of USMCA compliance, and that principle has allowed us to find ways for our businesses to work past the fentanyl tariffs, for example. Right. We have a zero tariff on parts. We worked very hard on that here. And we have a lower tariff on automobiles than others, but we need to get it back to zero. And until we can do that, we're still going to have a lot of this volatility. So I was there at General Motors when that plant closed. The first thing you do after that is you get it back open again, and you get it back to 3 shifts, and I think we can do that again.
But the president is not saying, I want to make it uneconomical for Canada to make cars unless they're USMCA compliant. He just stops at making it uneconomical for Canada to make cars. Yeah. I mean, that's a big dark line in the sand.
Yeah, but again, we've been making progress. That's the key point. And I think you make progress by being constructive and by engaging and by being here. And that has worked in terms of reducing some of the tariffs in a way that gives a very significant competitive relative advantage for Canada to the rest of the world. Now we need to build on that and build our way back. The President also talked about, and the Prime Minister today talked about the fact that they're going to be putting a 25% tariff on vehicles coming from outside of North America. Right. That creates about a 5 million vehicle opportunity within North America. There is not 5 million vehicles of opportunity in the U.S. system. So ultimately, we can step up and be part of that with our supply chain and with our factories.
Mark Carney said today in his press conference at the embassy that he sees this essentially as the start of the renegotiation of the trade relationship. Trump was far less specific on how he viewed this, like, oh yeah, USMCA, it's pretty good, maybe, maybe not. We have concepts is what we're talking about now. He seems to prefer the weaponization of tariffs as his approach to these things. But do you think this is headed to a continental trilateral conversation? Or are we headed to bilateral conversations on this one?
Well, I think we'll have a bit of both, actually. I think that there are problems that can be addressed and solved bilaterally, and I think we'll be in a period of doing that until we get into the USMCA renewal. I don't see us moving directly into that renewal, or I didn't see the sense of that in the meetings today. And I think that's okay if we take on some things like our national defense, if we take on the continuation of reduction of tariffs, and understand that we need each other. Take, for example, the big focus here is in China. And China is talking about turning off its critical mineral supply to U.S. military and U.S. industry. Well, we have that in Ontario, in the Ring of Fire. And so the project at home of getting projects moving quicker is directly related to how we solve problems here as well. Because behind the scenes, when you're here day to day and you're in the meetings, right, they know that they need us. We need to just continue on with that discussion.
So is this, are we headed to a formal trade renegotiation like we saw with NAFTA 2.0, where you have lead negotiators and you have bargaining teams, and Steve Verhoeven is leaned on to come back and help Canada again as a trade negotiator on this? Or are we headed into sort of a barter style negotiation to try to get to a level of appeasement, almost like with the fentanyl tariffs, with the border plan? I mean, which of these tracks do you think we're headed?
Well, I think the whole world is engaged in the latter at the moment, that this entire setup of the application of tariffs, keep in mind that on April 2nd, there were almost 100 countries received over a 50% tariff from the president. They brought that down to 10 to try and quell the market. We have a 0% tariff in Canada. And so again, we have a relative competitive advantage that we can work on as we move forward. But yes, it's a transactional president. I think there's no question about that. And frankly, it took us 2 years to negotiate the USMCA. We don't have 2 years to fix the problems that we have. So it's a good thing to get into fixing problems now. We're delighted to have the federal government back after the leadership and after the election to grab the baton and move forward, and we're going to be there to support them 100%.
So just as a final question, from Ontario's perspective, I know there were threats to cut off power, put export taxes on power. Are we out of the phase where the threats of retaliation are still on the table? I just wonder what your sense is. We might hear from Doug Ford after the First Minister's meeting tomorrow when they get an update on where things stand.
Well, really, for the first time in trade, the provinces have engaged, and we've never before had the proposal of either withdrawing certain things that we supply or putting a tariff on those. We always have that as a tool that we can use in the toolkit. And I'm very proud of Premier Ford for having been able to show that we have all kinds of options. It lasted 2 days, but it was the one thing that got attention in the White House.
All right, David Paterson, Ontario's representative here in Washington. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Likewise.